Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me about your books and about your appearance at North Central that's coming up.
Sure, no problem.
So in terms of questions, I was looking through your website. I'm skimming through your books. I'm very glad to have gotten the opportunity to read those now. I noticed on the frequently asked questions section of your site that when you began writing your first book, you didn't conceptualize it as a young adult novel, but now that they found that audience as the young adult market to be very like a good fit for the series, how do you feel about writing to that specific audience?
I mean, I really enjoy writing about teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so much about writing to a specific audience. It's more about writing about a specific age group.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
the sort of the marketing and the demographic of your book is kind of decided on by the age of your protagonist, not really who they think necessarily is going to read the book.
Yeah.
But I really like writing about teenagers because I feel that their life concerns are very interesting to me, that I remember that part of my life very well, and I think it's a really fun time to write about. There's a lot of heightened emotion that goes along with being that age, and there's also a lot of big decisions that you have to make about who you are.
Mm-hmm, yeah, kind of like that changing, like, turning point kind of thing, coming of age.
Right.
So do you think is that, one of the reasons why young adult novels, especially those featuring young adult characters, have had such mass appeal, especially recently?
Yeah, I think that everyone can relate to and remember that particular time period in their life. And I think that people are discovering, in young adults especially, as the genre develops, there's a real focus on story and storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's actually something that people really value in books. And I think they're discovering that they can find it in the young adult section.
So as a young adult writer, how do you feel about all the attention that young adult series are getting, especially recently with all the movie-to-book adaptations like Twilight, The Hunger Games, and then I know your book is scheduled to possibly become a movie in the future as well.
I'm very excited about the idea of it possibly being a movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real thrill in the idea of seeing the world that you created come to life on the screen. And I would also say that I feel that there's a lot of the popularity of these adaptations comes from them appealing to something of an underserved audience,
Mm-hmm.
which is girls and young women. I feel that there are the only thing that most movies are made, and this is a pretty well-known fact about the movie industry, are made to appeal to men between the ages of 14 and 35.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's not a lot for women that is in romantic comedies. And so when they do make a movie that has a really strong plot and also a really central female character,
Mm-hmm.
they get this big explosion of girls and women coming out to see it because they're just given a lot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For people like me, if I want to go see a movie that has action in it, I'm pretty much condemned to go see a movie that is about a toy that my husband owned when he was 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
So for me, something like The Hunger Games is fantastic because I can go see a movie that has action and adventure and things that I love, and also features strong women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I saw online that your Mortal Instruments series was originally supposed to be a trilogy. So I'm not sure this is possible without giving any spoilers to people who haven't read the books, but could you tell me a little bit about why the series is expanded to a total of 6 books? I know they're not all out yet, but do you plan on making 6?
Yes, the original idea actually was, I'm a big fan of graphic novels.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love them. And I had originally intended to end the Mortal Instruments as the 3rd book and then continue a series of graphic novels that would cover what happened to some of the characters next.
Oh, okay.
And so I had, a whole storyboard outlined for that. And then that deal actually fell through when the graphic novel company kind of closed up. And so I thought, well, I could continue to try to shop this around as a graphic novel, or I could write these out as books, which seems like a more, once I had, already gone through the experience of having a graphic novel and having it not work out, I wasn't excited about trying to do that again.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'll write these out as books because, I already have this whole story planned out, and I might as well, make it available to my readership.
Okay, so you had the story. That makes a lot more sense. In terms of the prequel series that you have, The Infernal Devices, why did you decide to start a series of prequels instead of just going further to the story? What kind of interested you in doing a backstory for your world?
Well, I mean, I wanted to do both, so I wound up doing them both at once. Sort of alternate off one Infernal Devices book and one Mortal Instruments book, and I've always been really fascinated by the Victorian period. And one of the things that's fun about the Shadowhunter world is that it's really flexible. I can set stories in, Shadowhunters have been around for 1,000 years. I can set stories in almost any time period. So the idea of combining the Shadowhunters and, one of my favorite things, which is sort of Victorian Gothic, into one story was really irresistible. And I had the whole story and characters kind of, flying around in my head. And I just thought, you know what, I'll do them at the same time. There's no reason, I can switch off books because switching off books, it's a very intensive process working on a book. You're really living with those characters.
Yeah.
And switching off allows you to come back to the other books sort of revitalized and energized.
Yeah, that's actually interesting.
So
I like
find
that.
it a really, great process to be able to do that. And also, I'm able to interweave little bits of the Infernal Devices and the Mortal Instruments together. So, readers who are really looking out for it can see the connections between them.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And then for your, I saw also there's a press release that you're going to start a third series of Shadowhunters books.
Yeah, that's true. But not until Infernal Devices and Mortal Instruments are over. So this was more of a publisher came to me and said, what do you think you want to do when you're done with, they tend to plan several years ahead. It's just the way that publishing is.
Yeah.
They need to know what they're doing. And, what do you want to do? Considering your last book is coming out in, we're looking at a year and a half, 2 years, to be done. And I was like, well, I have this idea for a Shadowhunter series that says Los Angeles. It's my hometown.
Yeah.
It's where I grew up, and I've always kind of wanted to write about it. And they were like, great. So that's The Dark Artifice. And the first book of that series is due out in 2015.
Yeah, that's what I read. Just curious, what has made you decide to continue writing stories about this particular world instead of starting like a whole new series? I guess, what do you think attracts yourself and readers to this particular world you've created?
Well, two things. One is I actually do have another project. So at the same time that I'm writing the Dark Artifices, I'm also writing a series of co-written middle grade books with Dr. Holly Black that are about a completely different world. That are sort of about they are fantasy and they do have magic, but it's a completely different world, not about the Shadowhunters.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to keep my while working on this new project, I kind of wanted to keep my hand in with the Shadowhunters, so I didn't forget about them. And I think that it's a very big world, it's a very large mythology, and there are a lot of possibilities in it. I think that's what attracts me to keep coming back to it. Yeah,
that's definitely always exciting. So specifically, the character Clary from your first novel, just curious, did you base her or were inspired by anyone in real life or other popular culture characters when you came up with that character?
She actually was based a little bit on a combination of two people that I knew when I was starting to write the books. One of them was a tattoo artist who actually initially sort of got me interested in the topic of tattoos.
I did read that on your site.
Yeah, that's how I got the idea for the Shadowhunters books. And the other was my roommate, who I lived with at the time, who was an artist and was very much into anime and manga and was an animator. And so I kind of gave Clary her sort of artistic sensibility and her taste in books and anime and manga.
And speaking actually of that, I also read that your first two series, Mortal Instruments and Infernal Devices, are going to be released as graphic novels in the future?
Yeah. Mortal Instruments is going to actually be released as a comic.
Okay.
So that should be interesting. And Infernal Devices is going to be released as a manga series from Yen Press, which is part of Hachette.
What do you think makes young adult fantasy books so appropriate for this medium? Because I know Twilight has had graphic novels. Another series, Maximum Rides for young adults, has had, I believe, actually the same publisher as series. What makes them, so well suited to this particular medium?
I feel like there's a real crossover in sensibility between people who love sort of young adult, kind of paranormal fantasy, and the people who love manga. There's I get a lot of emails from people who are really excited that Clary, likes manga and anime because they like manga and anime. So I feel like it kind of there's a certain manga and its style really lends itself to invented worlds, a hyper realistic style, and so I think that is probably why there are so many. I know that there are a whole bunch of different sort of fantasy young adult novels that are being adapted for manga. I think that's why.
Okay. And then I noticed that on your site, like on your schedule, the only release event you'll be having for City of Lost Souls is actually the upcoming visit to North Central. Do you know if is there any particular reason you're involved, why you're only making one public appearance for this event?
Well, I've toured for every book I've released since 2007, so it's almost 9 tours. They usually take about 2 weeks and then another week for me to recover because tours are so exhausting. I've also published my books about 6 months apart for the past couple of years, so I've been, doing these big tours every 6 months, and I kind of went to my publisher and was like, I am, it's literally physically exhausted.
Yeah.
And I have these upcoming deadlines, and it was one of those, like, I just think probably for the even though I love going on tour and I love meeting my readers, for the purposes of preserving my health.
No, definitely.
This time around, and they were like, yeah, it makes more sense. For me, I'd rather tour for the last book in each series. It gives me a chance to talk to my readers about how the series ended, how it wrapped up, how to and relate to them about that, than to tour for the second to last.
And then is there anything else you'd like to say to the campus community prior to your appearance at North Central?
Just that, it's really great to be doing an event at a college because, when I was in college, there wasn't this, like, sort of crossover readership of people reading YA. YA kind of didn't exist in the form that it exists now, and I think right now some of the best, books and the best storytelling, Hunger Games, that kind of, is being done in YA, and it's really great to see people of all ages embracing it.
And then, are you going to be signing your past books at this event, or just the new one?
I'll sign whatever you bring.
Sounds great. All right, Miss Clare, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Thanks for calling.
Hope to see you on the night of.
I'll see you up there.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.